warm welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Learning Podcast, and very excited and happy to have Gagan. Warm welcome, Gagan. Any welcome comments before we start off with your
Well, all I
things?
can say is thank you for having me, Ravi.
Excellent. Thank you, Gagan. As always, you're crisp. We look at your crispy answers in these four themes. So we are looking at career pathing for college students as theme one. What's happening around the world in terms of data and AI. We will look at product management as theme three, and the importance of financial literacy, and your take on the pros and cons of living abroad. And you said you're going to actually name some of the universities in Netherlands for students as well. So these are the four themes that we are going to cover. The first question is on how should a college student plan their career pathing as such? What can young Gagans look at? A lot of young Gagans across the world. So can you share some of your thoughts around this, Gagan?
Uh, yeah, sure. Before I start answering that, I would say pretty interesting line of themes that you've chosen, Ravi. In terms of career pathing, I would say predominantly in India, now there are plethora of options here. Uh, there are so many areas where people can, let's say, research and figure out what interest areas they have because back in our times predominantly it was engineerings or doctors and all these things are pretty much common in every household, especially middle class households, right? But now things are changing, rather I would say they have already changed. So there are far more things than that young Gagans or probably young Ravis for that matter can try to research and find their footing. Example, there's so much happening on content side, right? So you can either try to figure out if you have your interest in content curation, content repurposing, graphic designing, effects, etc., etc. There are so many AI tools available these days in the market. Uh, so yeah, that's one thing. And there are then people who are very much into coding right from their initial days.
Yeah.
I wasn't that much into coding, but then I know a lot of people who are into coding right from their early days, right? So that's the second area.
Yeah.
And then again, when I say coding, world is the oyster there. You can just pick up a language that you sort of want to learn. Because
Mhm.
again, right from day one, a person won't understand what sort of language or programming he or she likes or does not likes. But then once you slowly get into a groove, you start picking up things. So that's, I would say, coding was there, is there, and will always be there.
What's been your journey like? I mean, did you do your engineering and then what's your first job like?
So right. So my engineering was from a college in Nagpur, Priyadarshini College of Engineering.
Okay.
And then I fortunately got into a pool campus where HSBC came in.
All
And
right.
that's where my, let's say, so-called professional journey started in HSBC Technology, Hyderabad. And HSBC Technology, as you know, was a captive setup of HSBC Group back in Hyderabad and Pune. So
Yeah.
that's where my first job was basically.
So let's go through your journey. I mean, in terms of kind of roles that you mentioned. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, as I mentioned, my first journey was from HSBC technology. The first, let's say, professional skill set that I was allocated in HSBC was on mainframe technology that time. And then, so things, I mean, one thing led to another. I was pretty much in a zone where I'd figured out that, I would like to move towards a data world. So not continue per se in mainframes, but move towards data world. That's where I started speaking with the seniors in my company, and then just started talking to have a conversation left and right with folks who are in the industry, so-called veterans at that point in time.
Yeah.
And then eventually I was guided by them towards the data field. Now, when I say data is a pretty broad umbrella.
Yeah.
I started my self-learning journey towards data in what we call data integration, right? So that's where my journey into data, or I would say that's where my funnel into data world was created.
Great.
And then, so I worked, I then moved basically to AIG, American International Group, Bangalore, which
Mhm.
is where I worked in multiple, I would say, silos of data, quality or integration. And then I moved from AIG towards, I think for 2 years probably in HCL. And then by the virtue of working in HCL Technologies, I was working in a Tesco Bank as well in Bangalore,
Okay.
again in the same data field.
Right.
And then I shifted to Netherlands, and then I started working for ING Bank, basically, again in the data field. So my journey has been from mainframe back in 2011 towards data since last, I would say, 13, 14 years now,
Great. Great.
covering various aspects of data spectrum, quality, governance, integration, etc., etc.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So while we're speaking on data, what's new in the world of data and AI? So what's kind of buzzing in the tech world, Gagan?
Yeah. So in tech world, I'm pretty sure no one, I mean, until a person is literally living under a rock, he or she is aware about what's happening on AI. AI is the new buzz. Having said that, AI isn't new. AI has been there since 1960s and 70s.
That's right.
The reason why it's buzzing now is because it's comparatively cheaper for corporations to use and exploit artificial intelligence algorithms, which wasn't easy and cheaper way back then.
Mm,
So just to state a fact that I was reading through a blog a couple of weeks back,
mm,
uh, the cost of running an AI model has come down, I would say, by 1% now.
mm.
So what used to cost $100 50 years back is now literally costing not even $1. It's basically a couple of cents now,
Great.
right? So AI was there. AI is now booming and buzzing because of computational power, because the software, the hardware machines are able to store more, are able to compute more, if I use those technical jargons per se, right? So yeah, I mean, if you ask me, I'm pretty confident that either you can be a person who uses AI in your life, daily life, or you can be a person who sort of helps in creating and curating AI. But
Great.
you got to be on either of those sides. We cannot say that, okay, I'm not going to be using AI or I'm not going to be creating AI. You got to be on one of those sides.
All right. Great. Great, Gagan. Thank you. Uh, what's happening around the technical product management, and what's your take on the resonance between tech and product?
Yeah, that's quite interesting because while often talking to people, I get challenged. What exactly is technical product management? How is it different from project management, etc., etc., right? So, technical product management per se, from job standpoint, is pretty hot topic these days, just like AI.
Yeah.
Uh, if you ask me to help you simplify what is the core difference, I would say product creation is not only about executing things. So project execution, and I might attract some flack for this, but uh, project execution is basically executing things with the resources that you have in your hand in terms of infrastructure, in terms of people, in terms of timeline, etc. While product development or technical product development, to be specific, goes a bit ahead in terms of creating an entire ecosystem right from the place where you start ideating your product
Right.
until you deliver a product, and
Mm,
then of course way beyond that as well, because you need to research the market, you need to understand customer needs. So point being, you end up creating and selling benefits
right.
which literally improve your customer's life or experience
Mm-hmm.
from technical, functional, monetary standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
is where I see product management going. And then routing this product management towards technical product management is where you have a person who comes from engineering or tech background,
Mm-hmm.
but then has a mindset where he or she ends up creating technical products which fulfill the needs of people, basically.
Great. Great. Thank you, Gagan. So besides your day job, what else keeps you interested? What's the kind of passions you have, Gagan?
Uh, Passions. I have pretty much one passion per se, which is far more than passion, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say this is far more than fashion is because it's been with me since last 10 plus years now, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be there with me. So I am active in the space of financial literacy, Ravi.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been a self-learning journey,
Mm-hmm.
and the core, let's say, reasoning why I was interested in financial literacy was very simple, and it might sound a bit cliched, but yeah, it's as simple as, if we are earning, or rather working so hard to earn our money, why aren't we aware enough, at least the basics, from a basic standpoint, why aren't we aware enough that helps us manage our own money, right? So why are we depending on folks who then help manage their money? So
Mm-hmm.
that was the core crux why I was interested
Mhm.
in financial literacy. And I think one thing led to another. It's been 10 years, as I mentioned. So I basically help educate and mentor people how they can manage their money, how can they invest their money, how can they be financially literate so that they know the basics, so that a new person cannot just,
Mhm.
uh, uh, misguide them basically. So the core is to avoid misguidance while you invest your money.
Absolutely, absolutely, Gagan. Thank you. And what are the pros and cons? I mean, we're looking at living abroad, and we Indians, right? Right from our friends and parents actually push us to go and study in the US or Australia universities as such. So, what are the pros? What are the pros and cons of actually living abroad? And be very specific in terms of answers because a lot of people are interested in the universities in Netherlands as well. So, keeping that in mind.
Yeah, I'll try to be as specific as I can because I do not want to sound factually incorrect.
Sure.
So, in terms of pros, I would say exposure. So,
Right.
the exposure that you get in terms of way of working, basically, right? So, your entire personal life or professional life, you have been in a mold, and then you take a next step and you try to then know the new mold, and then you try to relate the best of both worlds, right? So, that's where the exposure comes in. Sometimes the exposure is a bit good, which adds to your personality, your way of working, your overall ecosystem. Sometimes the exposure is not as good as a person might expect to be, right? So I know a couple of people who are also in some other countries. Some are happy, some are not happy, professionally, personally, etc., etc. But then to uh, narrow down to your question, in from Netherlands standpoint, I would say we are pretty happy because Netherlands is a cosmopolitan country. Besides, I think there was a census conducted last year,
Mhm.
which basically ranks Netherlands as one of the most proficient English speakers who are non-native English speakers, basically, if you know
Uh,
what I mean, right?
yeah.
So the most proficient non-native English speakers are the Dutch folks.
Mhm.
So there is no language barrier per se here.
Right.
I mean, it's been almost 6 years now, me living here in Netherlands.
Mhm.
I don't see a language barrier.
Mhm.
Uh, People are pretty open. Yes, they are direct, which is good as well in a way,
Mhm.
because that's slightly different from different cultures. That's slightly different in different cultures.
Right.
But yeah, as I mentioned initially, you get the both best of both worlds. You understand the way of working, you get more exposure.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Right.
And then in terms of universities, right? You also asked. I would take two names, the Rotterdam University, and sorry, not two, but three names: Rotterdam University, Erasmus University, and the University of Amsterdam. And these are just the three names. I mean, there are many Dutch universities
Mhm.
who consistently, I would say, rank in the top list of global universities per se. So,
Right.
depending on the choice of study that your listeners probably are interested in,
Yeah.
uh, a quick Google search can help them understand if they find a university that suits their criteria or not.
So,
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
uh, just one last point on the university thing. I think there are quite some good scholarships from Erasmus University specifically.
Okay.
There are prerequisites to it, but there are some, I believe, if I recall correctly, there are some good scholarships available
Mhm. Mhm.
that would help people from tuition's perspective as well.
Oh, right. Okay. So, in terms of the Indian population, you know that we're pretty good in terms of speaking English, right? So, apart from that, in terms of the budget as such, for a typical college student who's going to Netherlands for a study, let's say for masters, what's the kind of money which they need to carry and live comfortably for 1 year or 2 years, kind of per month, the kind of expenses. That's about it.
Yeah, so if you're trying to ask from a student perspective,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Uh, Again, this is a bit subjective and relative because when we say living comfortably, it can be different. It can mean different things to different people. But from university standpoint, I would say along the lines of 50,000 euros. If a person is not on scholarship, yeah. So a good master's program in a good Dutch university costs upwards of 50,000 euros, I would say.
Mhm.
I was recently trying to figure out a program for one of my friends.
Mhm.
That's where I realized that it goes way beyond 65,000 euros as well.
Okay.
So it really depends on the choice of course. But one of my colleagues was suggesting me that it's going to be an upwards of 50,000 euros basically.
Okay. Okay. Great.
And then in terms of living comfortably,
Mhm.
I would say at least 1,500 euros a month
Okay.
would be okay for a single person in terms of fooding and lodging and transport, of course.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that
Yeah,
helps. That helps a lot. At least we have an idea in terms of how much the expenses will be there. And so, thanks a lot for your time. Gagan, you've been in Netherlands and now it's a pretty unearthly hour over there. Uh,
no,
I've seen you back in 2011, I guess, when I was working with GLT, HSBC. I was a behavioral trainer over there, and I think you guys were one of the first batches I trained. I had a very good time. Uh, Very nice connecting with you, and I'm going to connect with a lot of your other batchmates back in HSBC, and lovely conversation. I know it's just the first part of it. I think we're going to have at least a couple more of these podcasts identifying the topics, burning topics, as I keep saying. And let's be connected again. Thanks a lot for your time today.
perfect. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for having me.